Fiction is something invented by the imagination, specifically an invented story. It is the fabricated account of something. It can also be a literary work based on imagination rather than on fact, like a novel or short story. Fiction has a power that no other form of communication does. The power to insert you fully and completely in someone else's mind. It allows you to understand perspectives you have never seen before, both psychological and physical.
Among these, science fiction, one of the most popular fiction genre that can puzzle our minds into thinking anew. Science fiction, as definition, is something that deals with possible alternative realities. It is a genre of speculative fiction, typically deals with imaginative concepts such as advanced science and technology, space flight, extraterrestrial life, and time travel. Science fiction often explores the potential consequences of scientific and other innovations and has been called as literature of ideas. Sci-fi is the genre that considers what strange new beings we might become and what mechanical forms we might invent for our bodies and what networks and systems might nourish or tap our life energies, and what machine shells might contain our souls. Stephen Hawking once said, "Science fiction is useful both for stimulating the imagination and for diffusing fear of the future." Interest in science fiction may affect the way people think about or relate to science. It examines the way changes in science and technology have affected human perception and behavior and how this has been reflected in science fiction. This analysis is done with reference to a number of recurring themes in science fiction: voyages into space, the concept of alien, utopias and dystopias, and the role of technology. When we look at the world, we see the world in pieces, and it's hard to understand how those pieces fit together. On a straight line, how did we get from point A to point B? science fiction gives us the context. Science fiction is often inspired for future science possibilities. Looking at the world in different lights is one of the most vital things one can do in the pursuit of growth. Our perspectives today are limited, but they are constantly evolving. Science fiction helps us to look at the world from someone else's perspective, and by doing so, we try on something very new, very innovative, and then lies a possibility of adopting those ideas in our own lives. In doing so, we evolve as more reliable beings our earth can have. Once you read or see a sci-fi, you walk away as a changed person. You understand things that you did not understand before, and that shapes your worldview.
So, do science fictions truly drive you into inventing and help you have a vision of the future? They may do so up to a certain level. Let me explain this to you with an incident. It was 2118. It was 2118 and the world seemed to have finally learned the basics of humanity by standing unitedly with a single leader. The past prediction of the Mother Earth dying in its worst conditions seemed to be coming true. The atmosphere had the highest level of toxic gases. Many species the human beings had seen had already become extinct. When all men had finally understood the worth of our Mother Earth, it was too late, as our world was in its deathbed. At its peak days, the President of the world had the final report of our future. The report gave the possible days that we can sustain in this world, and it was devastating to know we had only a month or so. With fear in his fist, the President decided to share the news with its citizens and called on for a press meet. In his press meet, President broke out the news and assured his people that the world had raised the best scientists and they would surely find a solution that could save the people of this earth. With the President's orders, world's famous scientists gathered together in an act to find a solution to the foreseen problem. One among them put forth an idea that was once suggested by a senior scientist in a conference. The idea was to transport the people of the earth to the habitable planet Kia. But there was a problem. The earth was exhausted to lend enough fuel for all the rockets that were to fly. We had overused our earth's resources to make use of it in our needs. Agreeing to this, all of them went into finding the written documents related to the put forth idea. They found the book in one of the oldest shelves of the World Library. The book had the information about the fuel-rich substances, the asteroids. It is known that there are likely millions of asteroids within our solar system, and over 18,000 are classified as near-Earth objects. That means that they are located relatively close to our planet. While some hold trillion tons of water, others are thought to hold rare earth minerals and metals. Most asteroids fall into three classes: C-type, S-type, and M-type, each of which are extremely valuable for their unique resources. Out of the three, the C-type are referred to as the best all around for mining, and that's because they have high abundance of water bound up as hydrated clay minerals. Other than space colonization, these water molecules can be broken down into its constituents, hydrogen and oxygen, and used as rocket fuel. The idea was to set up cosmic gas stations and mine fuels into the rockets. The book ended here, and how do we find these asteroids and mine it was still a question. After very thorough discussions, the scientists found that the book was just the first part, and the second part held the answers. It consumed around 10 days to look out for the book, and finally, we had the answers in our hands. An asteroid that could feed us the fuel was approaching the Earth in 15 days from that day. The scientists made all the necessary rides to the asteroids and back to fill in the rockets. This process took more days than expected, giving the people the last few hours to fly before the Earth came to an end. Finally, it was time. The first rocket flew to the planet Theia. And just when the other rockets took off,